Hello everyone, this is our last video on the tribes. We're going to be talking about the tribe of Benjamin, which was the last born of all the different tribes of Israel, and they were the last of the sons born to Jacob, Israel. And so I guess that's how we ended up doing Benjamin last. And we're going to talk about Benjamin now. This is an interesting topic. The tribe of Benjamin has some interesting characteristics and things that identify the tribe of Benjamin. And Benjamin means son at thy right hand, or right hand. And also Benjamin means like a struggle, the son of the struggle, son of strength and struggle, the struggle that Rachel had in her childbirth. She ended up dying, having given birth to him, and she named him Ben-Oni or Ben-Ani. And that sort of speaks like a strength or a virility of life and that kind of idea, like a sexual prowess and strength in character. Tribe of Benjamin also had people that were very bright, but also quite spiritual and religious, and very studious, like other tribes, like Levi and Judah and Issachar. Benjamin was very knowledgeable in these things, and because Paul or Saul of Tarsus was actually from the tribe of Benjamin. We see that in Philippians 3 verse 5. It says that he's from the tribe of Benjamin, and Benjamin was known to be with the Jews for quite a long time. And so when you look at the history of the tribe of Benjamin, it's usually goes along with the history of the Jews in the land of Judah. So they had an affinity and closeness, not just with their brothers, of Joseph. Early on, it was with Joseph, and we'll see later on, it was also the tribe of Joseph that brought about the continuance of the tribe of Benjamin. And so this is an interesting topic also, but Benjamin was really had a strong affinity with Judah. They were a neighboring tribe right beside Judah, especially that we know that the boundaries between the tribe of Benjamin and Judah was Jerusalem. They call it Jebusai. Those are the people that were there, and the Benjamites did not drive them out. And so they were only driven out in the time of King David. And so that's just something of note. But the tribe of Benjamin was known to be a very powerful tribe that was very warlike, expert in war. Also known to, there was actually more left-handed people in this tribe than any other tribe. And I thought that was interesting, that there was more lefties, actually, which I found was a very interesting feature about the tribe of Benjamin, because they were ambidextrous. That made them good at war. They were able to fight quite well. They were men of war, and they were known for their strength and their strength of character and their intelligence. So this is what made them good at war as well. So these are some of the features of Benjamin. And so we're going to start in Genesis 35:18. This is where we get the name of Benjamin.
Yeah, and it came to pass as her soul was in departing, for she died, and she called his name Ben-Ani, but his father called him Benjamin.
And so there you have it. That's how you get the name of Benjamin. It had to do with Rachel struggling and dying in childbirth. That's where we get his name. He's the last of the strength of Rachel and the struggle. So,
and the interesting part was he was actually, to my knowledge, the only son that was actually named by the father, it seems here.
Correct. And that was an interesting point too, because Rachel had died in childbirth, but Rachel did give him a name, Ben-Ani. And then so I'm going to look at the sign of Benjamin is actually the wolf, actually. And before I go to that, Genesis 49, verse 27, I just want to say Genesis 45:14. We're not going to go there, but this shows the character of Benjamin. He was an emotional man. It said that he kissed the neck of Joseph, when he realized that that was his older brother from Rachel. So Benjamin had this emotional part to him, this character. So that was something of note. Genesis 45:14. We're not going to go there, but this is when Joseph first met Benjamin, and Benjamin realized who he was, and and Joseph blessed him mightily and gave him the most money of any of his brothers, because they were brothers. So they were close. These two tribes were close in the beginning, as we see here. Genesis 49, verse 27.
Yeah.
This is where we get the symbol, where the symbol comes from.
Yeah.
And the blessing given to the tribe of Benjamin.
Yeah, this is the verse 27, Genesis chapter 49. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is that his father spake unto them and blessed them. Every one according to his blessing he blessed them. And he charged them and said unto, I am to be gathered unto my people. Bury me with my fathers, the cave that is in the field of Ephraim the Hittite. So these are the things that Jacob Israel had prophesied and spoke about all of his children before he passed. So there's many prophecies here, and much of the information that we know about them comes from this chapter.
So we have the whole idea of Benjamin being strong and being struggling to exert itself as a tribe, and so it said it would raven as a wolf, but it was because it was a strong tribe and a very capable tribe. They were able to conquer and to fight and to take what they needed and wanted and what they fought for, and they were actually the smallest tribe in Israel, and it's partly to do with a lot of their tribal characteristics, which didn't help them in their numbers. They were very keep to themselves, family-oriented, tribe that protected their own, and they only considered their own really, their own territory. They didn't mix with other tribes, and they had this strong sense of themselves. And so this did not help their numbers. And so that's why they had this sexual virility, prowess thing. But at the same time, the tribe of Benjamin was very, very quiet and modest and really kept to themselves. So that these two things really worked against the tribe of Benjamin, and their that kind of thinking and those characteristics worked against this tribe in their growth. And so they were blessed, yes, but they also had these issues that really came up, and we'll see that later on in the book of Judges. So yes, they were really low in numbers, as we see Numbers 26:41, and the beginning in the book of Numbers when it talks about Benjamin. They were a small tribe, and they never really grew. In fact, they were almost completely wiped out in a civil war against all the other tribes of Israel, because they had committed an atrocity, and they were so keep to themselves and so family oriented. They weren't even willing to give up those criminals to the other men of Israel that demanded them to give up, and they did not. And they had a civil war, and they almost got wiped out. So we give that strong-willed attitude, and they were quite capable men of war, as we'll see. But we see this issue coming up with Benjamin. So, we're going to go to the other blessing of Benjamin in Deuteronomy 33, verse 12. Deuteronomy 33:12.
And of Benjamin he said, the beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and shall dwell between his shoulders. And of Joseph he said, bless the Lord be his land for the precious things of heaven. And it continues.
So before it starts with Joseph, he begins with Benjamin. Benjamin was the other son of Rachel, Israel's favorite. But here we see an interesting blessing. It talks about people dwelling safety by Benjamin. So Benjamin was kind of a buffer for the children of Judah, the Jews, and the people in the temple in Jerusalem. So they were that buffer, that protection for Judah, and they fought with them and helped them. And it said the Lord would cover their shoulders. So the Lord watched over Benjamin, even though they had a civil war, they were not wiped out. And that also talks about their closeness, their spiritual closeness to God. They have more stronger spiritual nature to Benjamin than other tribes. So this gives you that idea, and so that we can see why they had a stronger affinity with Judah then, because Judah was known for being spiritual as well. We have that strong leadership role that Benjamin needed, and that stability that Benjamin needed, and they provided that. And we see that in 1 Kings 12 in the rebellion. And so Benjamin actually could have sided with their brothers of Joseph. Like Ephraim was the leader of Israel actually at that time. Jeroboam was from the tribe of Ephraim. But they did not follow their brother Joseph and join them. They actually stayed with Judah actually, which it was kind of an interesting point. But it shows you that affinity to the temple and Jerusalem and the Jews. And so they rather stick with them, and they did. And so that's why we have the history of Judah. The Benjamin, most of the tribe of Benjamin stuck with the tribe of Judah. So we can see that. And so I want to talk about one other little interesting aspect of the tribe of Benjamin is that we're talking about the left-handedness. Well, one of the first judges of Israel was from the tribe of Benjamin, and it said he was left-handed, and he was a man of war. And he had defeated the king of Moab by him single-handedly, went up and killed the king of Moab by himself. He was a very clever man and very cunning, but he was also a left-handed. And we see that left-handedness prevalence in the tribe of Benjamin. So we have Ehud, Ehud, and he was in Judges. We see that in Judges 3, verse 15. It talks to him being left-handed. And so we can go more into that story if you want. It's in Judges 3, verse 15. It talks about Ehud, the left-handed Benjamite judge. And now I talked about those flaws in Benjamin that caused the rebellion, or I should say the rebellion of Benjamin and the civil war, where the tribe of Benjamin almost virtually got wiped out. We have to talk about it in Judges 19. It talks about the atrocity. So I'm not going to go through it. It's kind of graphic stuff. It was definitely quite an atrocity and something that did not happen in the land of Israel amongst the tribes up to this point. They consider these kind of deeds done by their adversaries and the people that were taken out of the land for these same things and destroyed because of these same things that they committed in the land of Benjamin. It was a sexually immoral and murderous act, and so this was quite an atrocity. And we have some pretty graphics details, and I don't really want to go into it, but again, it was an atrocity done. And we'll take it up in Judges 22. And so Judges 20, verse 2. So all of the men of Israel were quite upset, and they gathered together against Benjamin, and they had huge numbers, like 400,000 to 33,000 of Benjamin. So they're greatly outnumbered here. So it's interesting what happens here. So we're going to take it at Judges 20, verse 2.
And the chief of all the people, even of all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God. 400,000 footmen that drew a sword. Now the children of Benjamin heard that the children of Israel were gone up to Mizpah. Then said the children of Israel, tell us, how was this wickedness? And the Levite, the husband of the woman that was slain, answered and said, came into Gibeah that belonged to Benjamin, and I and my concubine to lodge. And many of Gibeah rose against me and beset the house around about upon me by night, and thought to have slain me, and my concubine have they forced, and she is dead. And I took my concubine and cut her in pieces and sent her throughout all the country in the inheritance Israel, for they have committed lewdness in the folly of Israel. Behold, ye are all children of Israel. Give here your advice and counsel. And all the people rose as one man, saying, We will not any of us go into this, neither will any of us turn unto his house. Now all that shall be in this thing will do to Gibeah, and we will go up by lot against it.
So there you go. So it created a war, a civil war, and the tribe of Benjamin, and we see, did not give. He did not, give in here, and so this is how we ended up with war. And what's interesting, verse 16 to 17 talks about their prowess in war and their left-handedness once more. We could go verse 16, 17.
Among all the people, there were 700 chosen men, left-handed. Every one could sling stones at a hair's breadth and not miss. And the men of Israel beset beside Benjamin were numbered 400,000 men. That you saw all these men of war. And the children of Israel arose, went up, to the house of God and asked counsel of God and said, Which of us shall go up first to battle against the children of Benjamin? And the Lord said, Judah shall go up first.
Yeah, so it's interesting that Judah, the very nation they stuck with later on, was the first one to actually go to war and fight. And that's because they were the leaders. If we remember in the when they went to war, out to war, they were supposed to lead. And we see that here. We see all the tribes in their gatherings and how they were met with the tabernacle. We see this here repeated here. And so that's where we get the heraldry and the gathering and how they gather together in their separate tribes. And so we see how Judah went first. And actually they lost 2 battles. And it was really disheartening for the children of Israel. And it really rose up the tribe of Benjamin and showed that they were really expert men of war. But their pride got the best of them and they got defeated. And so thoroughly defeated that they only had like 600 men that have fled to some mountain in Rimmon. And as we can see later on in Judges 21:8, they gave them wives of the people of Jabesh, Gilead, but they didn't follow that or accept that. So in verse 16:21, they actually gave the daughters of Shiloh. And Shiloh is a city in Ephraim. So here we go. The tribe of Joseph was the force at keeping and maintaining this tribe from disappearing off the face of the earth. They gave them wives because earlier on they said that Judges 21 verse 1, that no tribe of Israel would give them wives, the tribe of Benjamin wives. So basically that would have effectively destroyed that tribe. But they allowed the virgins and people of the women of Shiloh to marry them, the tribe of Benjamin, which was in Ephraim. So there you go. That's how they were preserved. That's why we have a tribe of Benjamin today that we're talking about. And so I think that was interesting to talk about this story. And then another very famous person from the tribe of Benjamin is Saul of Kish, which was the first king of Israel. He was it says in 1 Samuel 9, 1-2, talks about him being the tallest of any man in Israel, in the land of Israel. And he was a strong man of war. He was a strong man. And it said that he was a man of power. So, he was a powerful man. He was big and tall. And that's what the people wanted. That's what they thought a king was all about. But God had different ideas. But God left it happen so they would see the difference with an anointed king that's anointed by God, and that God had to have something to do with it. And that's why David was the anointed king. But Saul was the king that the people chose. And, I can see why they chose him, and we can see that. So it shows that Benjamin trait of leadership and strength, and, that kind of aspect. Also he was a man of power, so he was a real man of war. And so that's who they wanted against their enemies, the Philistines. But it's interesting that David was the one who slew Goliath. That's another story, the anointed one. slew Goliath, and Saul did not. And then we want to go look at 2 Samuel 3, verse 6. Another man of war from the house of Saul. It said he became strong for the house of Saul. His name Abner. His name was Abner. And he eventually allied himself with King David. He was insulted, but he took a concubine. So we have that again, that nature of Benjamin getting him in trouble. And so we have Abner doing something similar to what happened in Judges 20:19. And so it actually ended him, in the end, he ended up being murdered by Joab, which was the cousin of King David. And so what I wanted to mention, it's something similar. The story is very similar has that same kind of flavor. And so this is one of the struggles that the tribe of Benjamin had. That struggling to, their ability to be men of war and be strong gave them a bit of pride, and it became a weakness at times, but also was a strength because people felt safe around Benjamin. And we could see that in them choosing Saul. So I'm going to talk about, where did this breakup happen? Like, why did Benjamin, and what happened where Benjamin ended up being with Judah and not with their brothers Joseph? And we see this in 1 Kings 12. This is the rebellion where 10 tribes followed Jeroboam of Ephraim and created the nation of Israel. And then we have the nation of Judah, where Benjamin stuck with the king of Judah, which was Rehoboam. And tribe of Benjamin went out and they took their men of war and they helped Rehoboam. And they wanted to bring back the other 10 tribes back to the king of David, or the line of David. And they failed in that. And because that was God's judgment upon the line of David for his sins, David and Solomon's sins, and probably Solomon's sins in more particular. But this is what happened. And so this is why we have the split, the major civil war of Israel. And this is where we have the tribal separation and a history of two nations. So when we have the prophecy of Judah, that will, a lot of time, we can say that also, when it's talking about national Judah, it also means the tribe of Benjamin for the most part. But some of the tribe of Benjamin in the northern parts of their lands were more affiliated with Shiloh and Ephraim. So we can see why they were taken out with the other 10 tribes. And those people of Benjamin, they went with all the other tribes, and they ended up mostly in Germany, actually. The original tribe of Benjamin that was in the north and then they left with the other tribes where they were in Germany and with the Goths, and they went up into Scandinavia. And so that's why we have some tribe of Benjamin in Scandinavia, like in Denmark, in northern Germany, and in the Germany region. So we have that strong character, and have that in Benjamin is in there. But we also see the tribe of Benjamin was actually, when in captivity, they were taken to the British Isles. And so we have the tribe of Benjamin in the British Isles, in England and Scotland and Ireland. So we see the wolf sign in some of the coat of arms and some of the names and heraldry in the British Isles. So they ended up there as well. And also the Normans. Many of the Normans that conquered England later on were from the tribe of Benjamin, and they were real men of war, and they were lived in the northern France area, but they weren't French. They were not Reubenites. They were of the tribe of Benjamin, and we can see that. And so those are some of the places where the tribe of Benjamin was, other than with the Jews, wherever they were. So wherever the Jews went, that's where the majority of the tribe of Benjamin went. So we find a lot of the tribe of Benjamin in the land of Israel today. Wherever there was high populations of Jews in different nations of the world, that's also where you find the tribe of Benjamin as well, because they were part of the nation of Judah. So uh, I want to make just some points. Jeremiah lived in the land of Benjamin, it said. And so we're talking about the captivity before the Jews are taken out by Babylon. So we have the land of Benjamin being mentioned here. So, people knew about it. And the tribe of Benjamin was clearly affiliated with Judah because the other tribes had already been taken out by the Syrians quite a bit before. So, and then we have one last reference here, Nehemiah 11, verse 4 to 7. And it talks about the children of Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin being with Nehemiah in the time of the rebuilding of the temple. So we can see that most of the tribe of Benjamin went with the tribe of Judah into captivity.
Yes, I'm just going to read
by the
verse
Babylonians
from 1 Kings 12, verse 21, just to let people know about the split and that they joined with Judah. And when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he assembled all the house of Judah, and with the tribe of Benjamin, 180,000 chosen men, which are warriors to fight against the house of Israel, to bring the kingdom again to Jeroboam the son of Solomon. But the word of God came unto Shemaiah the man of God, saying, Speak unto Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, king of Judah, and all the house of Judah and Benjamin, and to a remnant of people, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Ye shall not go up, nor fight against your brethren, the children of Israel. Return every man to his house, for this thing is from me.
This is God speaking to the people through this man, Shemaiah. And so this split was of God, and it was for a reason. It was the sins of Solomon and David. And but yet he had all the lines of kings which continue through Judah. And so I find that very interesting. This is in 1 Kings 12, by the way. 1 Kings 12, 21 to 23. And so, yeah, this is basically fundamentally most of what I can say about the tribe of Benjamin from the Bible, and the understanding of some of the characteristics of the tribe of Benjamin and where they ended up. So we told you about all the different famous people from this tribe. And then I just finish it up with the symbol of Benjamin being the wolf. And so they were in, Benjamin can be found in the land of Israel, Germany, England, Scotland, Ireland, and what was part of northern France or Normandy. So these are places where, and of course, not to mention some places in Scandinavia where we see the heraldry of the wolf clear. So I thought that was interesting. And so God bless everyone. I pray that understanding all the different tribes would bring us together and cause us to have a greater awareness and appreciation for God and his word and his prophecy. And we know that it will come to pass. And one day all 12 tribes will be together, and they will be very instrumental in the end times, and when Yeshua the Messiah comes back, and we will rule and reign with him for 1,000 years, those who are in Christ and those who are his saints. So God bless everyone and take care. We will be talking about various topics from the Bible and things that we feel by the Spirit of God to speak on. And we try and do it where to make it easier to understand, but also to keep it biblical. And we find we know that's extremely important, and to be led of the Holy Spirit. So take care, everyone, and God bless.